Hi, I'm Rogi and I talk. I want to talk about my gender and what it means to me. I'm lucky that I have friends and family who are accepting about my gender, but very few of them know what I mean by it. That is why I never feel offended when they use the wrong pronouns and soon after correct themselves. If the pronouns don't come with mutual understanding, why should I care? Most times, I don't even want to correct them if they forget. And sometimes, I don't tell my friends preferred pronouns at all. Because if someone doesn't know what my non binary gender really means about me, it feels like we're just playing a game at that point. It's like I'm demanding, make sure you say this thing the right way to show me respect. And don't get me wrong, when people make an effort to be respectful and courteous, it means a lot. But for friends and members of my family, I already work under the assumption that there is mutual respect. So at that point, what are we even doing? Without the context, it feels awkward and forced with no end goal. That's why I'm making this video. I want more people to be able, if they want, to understand what my gender means to me. So to anyone watching this video who wants to figure it out, thank you. No amount of saying the right pronouns or getting it right could ever compare to actual effort to understand me. Making an effort to show respect and acceptance means a lot, but this means even more. So let's get into it. In this first part, I need to lay some groundwork about what gender is and is not. A huge number of people use the words gender and sex interchangeably, but really this makes no sense at all. Why have different words for the same thing? Well, unless of course you don't understand what you're talking about. Sex is a medical term. I don't know any doctors, so I don't talk about it very often. And I'm not doing all that weird stuff either, I just think the jokes are funny. So I don't really use the word that way either. So what about gender? My first and most productive dive into the world of what is gender was with Kate Bornstein. I was so curious about gender after talking to some friends that I even read her book. And that means a lot because I don't read unless it's manga or Blender documentation. It's been a while since I've read her book, so some things might be a little screwy in my explanation, but here goes. First, she says that, unlike sex, gender has more to do with how you want to present yourself to others. Gender is reflected in your decisions. Fashion, socialization, pronouns, all of it. And those decisions aren't only about who you are, it's about how you want others to see you. Gender, then, is influenced by these three things: identity, power, and desire. Desire is about sexual orientation. Who you desire, if anyone, will affect how you want to present yourself. For example, a lot of men identify as big, strong man because he wants that. Yeah, okay. Power is kind of meta. Basically, it goes like this. In the screwy world we live in, some genders carry less societal power than others, and some genders are outright denied. The reason I'm even making this video is that most of those who even accept unconventional genders don't really understand what they are. So, in a world where many people are fighting just to survive, a large number of people alter or suppress how they want to be perceived because they desperately need any power in their life that they can get. Some people do it unconsciously and can go years without even realizing it. Because why would you give up the power that has served you so well? Power is a valid reason to alter your gender, especially in situations of survival. There's nothing disingenuous about it. But for some people, the third facet of gender makes it very hard to prioritize power, even when there is a lot on the line. Gender identity. I like to think of gender identity as the fun one. Gender identity is about who you are inside. Why is that fun? Well, because you can keep exploring the question of who you are and never really get the full answer. It's the self-exploration that's fun. You can explore your gender identity through creativity, socialization, or even planning what kind of Pokemon trainer you would be. It's really just delightful stuff. And when you are able to express the idea of who you are to another person, the delight you feel is called gender euphoria. Let's say you have a role model that you've looked up to your whole life. You want to be just like them in every way. You share a clip of something they have said or done that means a lot to you, and the people see it and understand. That's gender euphoria. Or maybe you make a cosmetic change like wearing makeup for the first time or a chest surgery. Now you feel more comfortable in your body when people see you. That's gender euphoria. Or maybe you commission a cute drawing of a furry, and you feel like it represents something about you. Now you want to post it everywhere and share it with your friends. That's gender euphoria. These things that speak to your soul give you clues about who you are inside. They make up the building blocks of your gender identity. And although there are those out there who would have you ignore them or throw those ideas away, no one can control what goes on inside your mind. Gender identity is and always will be yours. Okay, so after that really long explanation, I haven't even gotten to my own gender yet. It's all been about theory. I hope it's been interesting. But now that I have the theory down, let me talk about how my gender fits into all three of these facets that I explained. First, a quick recap. Gender is influenced by three factors: desire, which describes attraction to others; power, which describes how societal pressures influence gender; and gender identity, which describes who we are inside. Let's start with desire, since I already talked about it a bit. When it comes to physical attraction, it's technically men for me, in theory. In practice, it's a little different. It goes like this. I have a physical disability that makes me easily injured. I've taken better care of my health now, but at the time I was going to college and meeting a lot of people, this was not the case. At the time, it was at the point where I had to be careful even handling my own body, much less allowing someone else to be anywhere near. Growing up, if anyone had ever entered near what I consider to be my personal space, it would cause a gut reaction of fear so strong that I would feel like throwing up. Even people who I trusted, people who were nice or just playing around, not even focused on me, but just being a little rough in another area, would create this reaction. This persisted for the entirety of my time in college, the time when I met the most people. So just the idea of being intimate with anyone, even those who I had superficial attraction to, was repulsive and felt impractical. The risk just wasn't worth it, even if I could manage enough mental gymnastics to get into it. Living with that repulsion to physical closeness for so long changes your perspective on intimacy a lot. So now that I have taken better care of my health and become physically stronger, cautious intimacy may be technically possible. I just genuinely don't want to. And other things have changed in my life too. I don't leave the house like I used to because of transit issues, which I might explain someday in another video. I live my life primarily online. I focus on my art, learning new things, and making videos like these. I make friends through creative spaces online and have no desire to turn any of those relationships, though they mean a lot to me, into anything more than friends. And I'm happy with my life like this. So, would I change my gender because of desire? Absolutely not. That's not for me. So, what about power? I've always appeared radically different to the people around me because of the way I look in real life. So, the amount of societal power I can attain by presenting as a man, although significant, is already lowered no matter what I do. Even if I force compliance to gender, I'll always be little man or that dude in the wheelchair. Even knowing this, it took me a long time to break away from my assigned gender. My dream was to become a teacher. Nothing else really mattered. And until that dream fell apart, I wasn't going to let go of any shred of power I could find. Anything that could help me achieve my dream was priceless. Power used to be the primary influencer of my gender, because I would have done anything to be accepted into an education system that I later learned was completely incompatible for me. So I held on to the role of man and chased my dream. I made sacrifice after sacrifice in my life to become a teacher. I'll talk one day about the journey to realizing that teaching would never work for me, and all the crazy things I did to try to make it work again and again and again. But eventually, I had to grow up and realize that such a dream would never happen. It wasn't long after I did this that I learned about gender and decided to present as non-binary. So today, does power influence my gender? Well, I'm happy to change my gender with people I don't trust and claim to be a man. And it's not really lying either, since power is a part of gender. When power is important, it affects my gender. But for people in my life who I trust, or friends, power is not important, and I can let gender identity define who I am. And that leads to the last part of gender identity, the fun one. Who am I inside? Well, I don't really know, but I know some things for certain that I want to share. Let's start with this. There are two ways to react to being obviously physically disabled all your life. Some disabled people really want to fit in, so they'll say things like, I'm just like you, or treat me just like you, and there's nothing wrong with that. But in most able bodied people, it creates this assumption that you want them to ignore your disability, even if that's not what you're saying. People get the idea that treat me just like you means we're pretending we're the same. This can create awkward moments when disability cannot be ignored. Moments like those have been very frequent in my life, and they are the way that I learned I do not want to conform to being perceived as the same as those around me. Difference is an important part of who I am. It might even be the most important part. I wouldn't want to ignore that part of myself the most. And in my gender, I want to make that part very clear. And although I obviously want people to treat me with respect and act in ways that feel natural to them, I want people to also be able to acknowledge that I'm different and not have to dance around anything. I want to present as very unusual and different because that is what I am. So instead of being attached to the idea of being a man, I have always been attached to my own idea of honest representation. And the thing that feels most honest to me is to reaffirm that I am different from people around me. I use my creativity as a way to be more specific about how exactly I am different from others. But any expression of difference is good enough when it comes to my physical body, which I don't have much control over, unlike this little VTuber. When I have complete control, like online, I gravitate to concepts like spiders, crabs, and other animals that I use as metaphors for describing things about myself. In real life, I just have really long hair. Just make it hard for people to figure out what gender I am. Let's do some of those fun metaphors about gender identity. So, spiders like to be alone, and they make giant art pieces on the walls and they live in their art, literally. They're going to build intricate, beautiful webs and use those webs to sustain themselves. Basically, what I'm saying is that spiders are content creators. And that's fun, and I like that. I want to do that too. It speaks to my soul and resonates within something real in me. Let's do another. Crabs do just about everything a little differently. They walk sideways, grab things with claws instead of hands, and use objects from their environment like shells to make themselves more independent. And I do the same thing. I move and function differently than the people around me. I use objects from environment like grabbers to grab things, and the grabbers I use are literally shaped like crab claws, so there's that too. So if I were to say I'm a crab or I'm a spider, it's not quite right, but there's something to it. I'm explaining things that are true about who I am as a person. It's just not the full picture. But that's the thing about gender. It's impossible to tell another person the full picture of who you are with one metaphor. So I like to use vague ideas to describe myself. That could mean multiple things. The words man and woman actually work exactly the same way. It might sound crazy, but I prefer the word monster. It sounds bad, but it actually brings me a lot of joy. Monsters have the difference I spoke of earlier. They allow me to create myself in whatever way makes sense. I can merge ideas from different animals and mythology in whatever way I see fit to express who I am inside. And after all, nobody ever said monsters weren't fun or interesting. Monsters aren't even usually evil in stories that are any good. For a lot of people, I think gender is a shallow concept. They don't get far enough to consider different ways of thinking. And although there isn't anything wrong with keeping gender simple, it's a bit sad to me that so many people avoid the joy of self-exploration through gender. So if I tell someone I'm a monster, they'll be understandably confused. Perceived in shallow terms, monster is quite a negative statement. But that's part of what I like about it. Anyone who refuses to think about what I'm saying will make that very obvious, very fast. Nobody is wasting any time with that one. I like to keep gender to myself unless I trust someone to be capable of understanding the fun parts of gender identity, and the metaphors I described earlier. And for those who do get it, I hope it sparked some joy in you or made you think. Let me know any thoughts in the comments you have. I'd love to hear about it.